Okay, I want to turn and talk about this. Interesting, today is Martin Luther King Day, and of course there are marches. This is kind of a First Amendment celebration show, but a lot of marches all around the country. Martin Luther King Day, honoring Martin Luther King's legacy. Of course, God bless that man for all he did for America and helping America through a horrible time where we're dealing with the following on the Ku Klux Klan, the Jim Crow laws, the segregation laws, all of the kind of evil, insidious segregation and racism in our country, and this guy, Martin Luther King, was just not going to stand for it. So he really was a tremendous leader in America, obviously. Born in January of 1929 and most tragically killed on April 4th of 1968. So today is the day that we honor Martin Luther King. And obviously most people remember Martin Luther King's words, his most famous of all his speeches, and he had many famous speeches and many famous things he wrote. But his I Have a Dream speech, where he said essentially that he had a dream that one day his children would be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Many people point to that to say Martin Luther King maybe would not have agreed with affirmative action. He maybe would not have agreed with the way in America today there's so much of a push to divide us racially, to become more tribalistic, to become more critical of people based on their skin color and their ethnicity. And so we don't know how Martin Luther King would have addressed every single issue facing America today, but he made a fabulous contribution to America in his work in bringing justice and the end of segregation. Let me say, though, there's another great American patriot, a black American in American history, Frederick Douglass. We've had at least one person or maybe two people on the show over the years who work with various Frederick Douglass organizations. I just want to make a plug here on Martin Luther King Day for the idea that on a day we honor Martin Luther King, because we don't have a national holiday for Frederick Douglass, we should consider on Martin Luther King Day also honoring Frederick Douglass. And there's a reason I say this. There are probably many Americans. I mean, Harriet Tubman Day could be a day. There are many Americans, African Americans, who have helped bring justice and make us a more perfect union in our country. But Frederick Douglass is notable for his teaching, and he's obviously much earlier in time. He's not the Martin Luther King era, much earlier in time, back to the days of the ending of slavery. And he wrote a lot about what newly freed slaves should expect from America. This is Frederick Douglass, what should the newly freed slaves, now people with a right to live in freedom, what should they expect? And Frederick Douglass was just a most amazing, insightful, deep thinker. And he talked about in ways I want to just share briefly some things he had to say. He said, I am not asking for sympathy at the hands of abolitionists or sympathy at the hands of any. I think the American people are disposed often to be generous rather than just. I'm going to substitute modern parlance for his reference to African Americans, but again, what he just said, I don't want sympathy from the abolitionists or from anyone. I think the American people are disposed often to be generous rather than just. The regard to the black people, there's always more that is benevolent, I perceive, than just manifested toward us. What I ask for black Americans is not benevolence, not pity, not sympathy, but simply justice. He also went on to say, everybody asks a question, and they learned to ask it early, the abolitionists. What should we do with the black Americans? I've had but one answer from the beginning. Do nothing with us. Your doing with us has already played the mischief with us. Do nothing with us. And if the black American cannot stand on his own legs, let him fall also. All I ask is give him a chance to stand on his own legs. Let him alone. I urge you to read more and more of the writings of Frederick Douglass. He's an amazing, amazing American in American history, an amazing guy who just, much of what he said, I think, does not sit well with the modern day advocacy from some elements of the American left that argue for, certainly Frederick Douglass would have rolled his eyes in disgust at the idea of reparations. He's just saying, we want to be treated with justice. We want to be treated fairly. We're not asking for pity, benevolence, handouts, just justice. Anyway, I love, as we in America continue the American political conversation about making a more perfect union, of bringing people together in this country, of finding more of a basis of unity. I love if we'd honor both Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass.